Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Celtic Warband here, and welcome to the new Medieval Kingdoms 1212 update. It is finally here, it's arrived, and a lot has changed in the mod. I'm really impressed with the depth of this update. So in today's video, we're going to go through the changes that were made in Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD, and then towards the end, we're going to take a look at a couple of good and bad things that I've found about the mod so far. And then at the very end, I'm just going to tag a little how to install section for those of you guys that are wondering how to do it. But don't worry, it's extremely easy to install. One of the easiest mods I've installed. So I really hope that you find the video helpful and informative. And without further ado, let's get to it. So the first question on everybody's mind is, what new factions are there? And I've got some great news for you guys. There are actually 11 new factions in Medieval Kingdoms 1212, with 6 of them being Eastern factions. And I'm really glad to see the love for Eastern culture making its way into the game. In the past, the Eastern factions were minimal, and most of the ones that were available for play had a pretty bare-bones roster. But that's all changing now, so let's look at the factions with the 6 Eastern factions first, and then we'll look at the 5 Western ones. The first faction is the Abbasid Caliphate, which stretched from Africa to India. It began with the fall of the Ayyubids in 750 and was succeeded by the Ottomans in 1517. The second one is the Almohad Caliphate, which controlled North Africa and Spain. It was established in 1121 at Tinmil and collapsed in 1269, making way for the Marinid and Hafsid Sultanates. The Marinid Sultanate rose to power with the collapse of the Almohad Caliphate. The Marinids gained the northwestern territories in Africa and held dominance in the region until 1465. The Hafsid Sultanate was another to rise from the shadows of the Almohads. They gained the northeastern territory in Africa and outlasted the Marinids, surviving until 1574. The Ghurid Sultanate was an empire stretching from eastern Iran through Afghanistan and Pakistan. From 879 it held dominance, but was absorbed into the Khwarezmian Empire in 1215 AD. The Khwarezmian Empire rose to power in 1077 as a vassal of the Seljuk Turks, but eventually became an independent empire. The empire was destroyed, though, in 1231 by the Mongols. Flanders was a prosperous region between France and the Holy Roman Empire. They were preceded by Lower Lorraine and eventually merged with Burgundy to form the Burgundian Netherlands in 1405. The Duchy of Lorraine was founded in 959 as Upper and Lower Lorraine. Lower Lorraine quickly became the County of Flanders, but Upper Lorraine became part of France in 1766. The Commune of Milan was located in the center of northern Italy. In 1395 it was named as the Duchy of Milan, and it actually became a fief of the Holy Roman Empire. The Republic of Pisa was another Italian city-state with an unrivaled navy. Pisa's fleet was instrumental in the siege of Jerusalem in 1099 AD, but following a defeat to Genoa in 1284, Pisa never regained naval dominance. The Archbishopric of Trier existed from 898 to 1801 within the realms of the Holy Roman Empire. It was one of the seats of power of the Prince Archbishop, and Trier was one of the oldest cities in Europe dating back to the Roman Empire. Alright guys, so those were the 11 factions that are now playable in the new Medieval Kingdoms 1212 update, and I hope you enjoyed the little snippet of history that went along with it, just so you guys can kind of figure out where these empires and kingdoms are coming from. But now it's on to the faction name changes. So there were 4 factions whose titles have been changed. So the first one is the Cilician Armenia, is now the Kingdom of Cilicia. The Cuman Khanate is now the Cuman Kipchak Confederacy. The second Bulgarian Tsardom is now the Tsardom of Bulgaria, and Kievan Rus changed to Grand Khanate of Kiev. We've also had a few factions that have merged in 1212. For those of you guys that do play 1212 quite a bit, if you do remember, there were quite a few duchies that existed as separate factions that you could play. That is all changed now. The duchies of Bavaria, Brabant, Saxony, and Austria all fall now under the flag of the Holy Roman Empire. And I kind of like that idea. Now the Holy Roman Empire can draw from the duchies directly in battle, with just the core of the army being from the empire. So it kind of makes it a little bit more in-depth, and I really actually like that choice. There's also mention that Silesia and Pomerania had been combined with Lesser Poland. However, we'll talk about that a bit later. Another good thing about the mod is that some of the Tier 1 only factions are now getting Tier 2 and Tier 3 units. So it kind of brings a little more, I guess, incentive to play those factions in a multiplayer battle, because now you have a full roster to be able to draw units from. There are 3 factions that did receive Tier 2 and Tier 3 upgraded units. They are the Kingdom of Cilicia, the Cuman-Kipchak Confederacy, and the Kingdom of Georgia. So now they are valid choices for anyone who's playing an online battle. And I know that Hamdog will be happy to hear that the Cumans got a very expansive roster. I took a look at it, and it's just insane. A lot of really good units for them. So that is a good thing to see, that some of these Tier 1 factions are now starting to get full rosters. I was hard-pressed to find a faction that didn't receive at least one new unit, and now all of the factions can bring the Culverin, which technically does count as a new unit. However, these factions listed here, or the faction flags you do see, received the largest overhauls in the new update. So we've got England, France, Genoa, Venice, Sicily, the Cuman-Kipchak Confederacy, Sicilia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Poland, Lithuania, Sweden, and the Grand Khanate of Kiev. One of the cool things about the new update is that there are a few special units that factions can bring in Medieval Kingdoms 1212 thanks to the new update. The first special unit is the Creccio Standard, or the Creccio Wagon. I think that's how you pronounce it, Creccio. It looks pretty sweet, I do have to say. I love the look of the red and white, and the knight driving it looks just awesome. Perfect knight skin for the driver of the Creccio Wagon. However, I do have some issues with it, which I'll explain later on in the video. The second one that we are able to bring now is the Culverin, like I mentioned before, and I'm so glad that they added this cannon into 1212. The modeling on it just looks phenomenal. I wouldn't change a thing as far as the modeling looks. It is a 4-cannon unit, and it fits nicely between the Bombard and the Great Bombard. And the Culverin will now be the main faction-wide cannon, as the Great Bombard is not available to every faction anymore. It's a bit more expensive than the Bombard, but it has a good rate of fire and high missile damage. It's also pretty accurate, even on moving targets. And then finally, we have the Hussite War Wagons. These are a really neat idea. Basically, they're, as you can see, deployable barricades. They are only available to Bohemia at a moment, which I think is a little bit tragic. I'd imagine that more factions will gain access to them, but they also have gunners behind them which can fire into approaching enemies as well, so they do have the potential to get a lot of kills. But we'll talk a little bit more about them in a bit. Alright guys, so now I'm just going to show you a couple of the issues that I found with the new patch. Now, I'm obviously aware that there is a ton of balancing that still needs to be done with this new patch, but I feel like this will probably affect multiplayer play a little bit, just due to the fact that the newer factions aren't really as balanced as the older factions are. So if someone's playing a newer faction against someone who's playing an older faction, it wouldn't really be as fair of a fight. But most of the factions were built by separate modders, so I can see there why they don't really relate to one another in any way. And I'm sure that all of this balancing will be done in due time. But I noticed for a lot of the older factions right off that the main morale is 35. But on some of the newer factions, the base morale is actually 25, especially on these higher tier units like the tier 3 units, 25. All of these 25 here, the late periods 25, so a lot of them being 25 for the morale, and archers 25 as well. So having that little bit less of morale can mean a big difference in a battle. So just one thing I noticed there. And then there were a couple of things with the Republic of Pisa that I caught on to. This right here is a big thing for me. Foot Signore here, late period polearm infantry. They look pretty solid, I would say, but they're 100 gold. So that's definitely going to have to be something that is patched or fixed, because in a multiplayer battle, that is way too overpowered. And this one over here, the best melee infantry, the Rotellari, which I probably butchered the name there, but they're 700 gold, tier 3 heavy melee infantry. If we go to another Italian city-state, an older one, Genoa, and scroll down, they've got the exact same unit, but it's 800 gold. So that doesn't really seem too fair to me. All of this kind of needs to be ironed out and balanced a little bit better. But again, I know that it just came out yesterday. I'm aware that it's very, very new. But these are just some things that hopefully the modders will notice that they need to take care of. And one other thing real quick, excuse me, is that I've noticed that the missile block is completely gone on every faction. So I'm not sure if that's something that's going to be reintegrated, but I really, really hope it does, because missile block is super important for multiplayer battles. It's an important factor for me when deciding even which units to bring. I want to know which units are going to be able to withstand missile fire. So just having that gone is a little bit of an issue for me as well. But yeah, this is what I was talking about here with the Bombard 400. We've got the 600 Culverin, and then the 1000 Great Bombards. So it kind of sits nicely in between, which I like this very much. But next we're going to be talking about this Carraccio Standard over here. So the Carraccio Standard, although it looks fantastic from what I can see, it has absolutely no use on the battlefield whatsoever. I ran a bunch of tests on it, and I know in Medieval 2, for Milan, when you brought the Carraccio Standard, that it provides a morale buff, but that is not evident from the tests that I ran. No matter how close to the wagon my units were, it made no difference on my morale at all. And I also took a look at the enemy units to see if they got a morale penalty, but that was not the case. So I ended up trying it as a melee unit. The thing had no charge bonus. It actually walked into battle, and that was on full run. And it did not cause any damage to the enemy unit at all. It was a very cheap unit of spears, I think 150 gold. So not only does it not give your army any buffs, but it is useless in melee, not even killing one of the very cheap spear units. So for 1100 gold, I think it's just a waste of money. Only bring it if you want your army to look awesome before the fight. That's what I could see it being the use for. But then again, the stats may just be missing from it, or they haven't, calibrated in the morale buff that it will give. But once that does happen, then I could maybe justify bringing it for 1100 gold. But for a glorified, piece of decoration on the battlefield, I would definitely forego it, at least in a multiplayer battle for sure. And now we come to the Hussite war wagons. Now, I really don't have an issue with these guys. I think that they're a really cool idea. I hope that more factions actually gain access to them. As it's late, guys, apologies. But as far as I can tell, only Bohemia can bring the Hussite war wagons at this time. But they're capped to 4 in the army, which I think is a good idea. You don't really want them to be spammed. They're pretty pricey, though. They're also 1100 gold. And the only thing I would mention about them for you guys who save 12 replays like myself is that the war wagons probably won't be very useful. They deploy themselves at the start of the battle, but if you move them, the replay is dead. It's gone. So you're kind of taking a huge gamble on where they will deploy and whether or not it's going to be in a location that's useful. So it makes the player who brings them a very defensive player as well. So if you're playing on teams, another thing I'd caution you, if you're going to be bringing those war wagons, make sure that your teammate is on the the same playing field, that he's going to be defensive as well. Because if you spend $5,000 on war wagons and then he brings a rush army, you're probably 99% going to be losing that battle. But otherwise, I think it's a really, really cool idea. Alright guys, last but not least, and as promised, I'm going to show you how to install the new update of Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD. It is very, very simple to do, but please delete your older version of Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD first. And if you are uncomfortable with going over to the new update currently, just due to the fact that it is so new and there's probably going to be a bunch of patches out very soon to fix some of the bugs. You can hold off and wait on this. There's no rush, but if you do want to, like I said, very, very simple to do. So if you do have a Steam version, it is all uploaded on the Steam Workshop. So all you have to do is go to Total War Attila here. And then in the Steam Workshop, chances are it's all going to pop up here, but just click Browse the Workshop. And you can just type in Medieval Kingdoms. And that should be enough to pull it up. And if we just take a look at which one is which here. Base pack. Yes, so here is the new base pack. And just confirm your file size here, 327.379 for the file size. But now there's actually 4 packs that need to be downloaded or need to be subscribed to instead of 3. So these are your MK Models packs. So there's MK Models 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's just very simple. All you have to do is click the subscribe button and then click on each of these links as well. Scroll down and make sure you hit that subscribe button there. And once you have all 4 packs, when you launch up the launcher here, just got to wait for it to come up. And when we go into the mod manager, I just have to cycle through because I've got a ton of mods here. I should probably go through and clean out a couple of them. But here we go. So we've got MK1212 base pack, Models 1, Models 2, Models 3, and Models 4. So make sure you have all of those. And if you do, everything should work fine for you. And I did notice here someone who wants an external link. It's probably because this person does not have Medieval Kingdoms, or sorry, does not have Total War Attila for Steam. And what I'm doing is, as we speak, I'm downloading uploading all of the packs to my Google Drive. So if any of you guys have a non-Steam version of the game and you need an external link, just email me. My email is all over my channel, celticwarband1991@gmail.com. Just tell me you're looking for the new 12.12 updated packs, and I'll just email them right to you. But that is it for this video, guys. Again, there has been a lot of work that's been done. I'm very, very impressed, very, very excited to play it as well. But, of course, like any new game, there is still a ton of work to do. I will link a Q&A that the one of the modders had put up on Reddit. He's answered a lot of questions about why there isn't a campaign, where all the naval units have gone, etc., etc., etc. So he can answer all of those for you. But if you have any questions for me, just leave a comment down below and I will try to help you out as best as I can. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. And as always, I will see you in the next one.